Hi, my name's Jenny Jonake. I'm of Dragon Song Farm in the Eugene area, and I'm a cut flower farmer. So right here is our peony area.
How many peonies do you have?
500 or 600.
Okay.
It's quite a few. It's about, I don't know, maybe 15 different varieties.
Oh my gosh, they're pumping out a lot of beauty then.
This is their third year, so they are finally were able to be harvested this year. And I was still pretty conservative at cutting the stems, so a lot of them were pretty short.
Yeah.
And I was experimenting with how to store them in different storage methods, how long they'll last, so that next year, hopefully when I get more stems, I'll be prepared to store them in the way that makes the most sense for them.
And maybe they'll start paying for themselves.
Maybe.
Wow. Well, what are your primary markets for your peonies?
Lane County Farmers Market events, they store really well,
Yeah.
so they're terrific for events.
Yeah.
I try to do some spring events, so they'll be perfect for that.
I saw you had your cooler there.
Yes, so this is our CoolBot cooler made from a CoolBot kit.
Uh-huh.
And we'll be putting in a flower barn, so we basically just installed it on this temporary base for now.
Okay. Say that again. You're going to move this somewhere?
Well, I'm building a flower barn closer to our greenhouses.
Okay.
And so it'll be easier to process because, I don't know, anybody that's had a cooler outside, one of the most inconvenient things is having to bring your buckets of flowers to the area where you're making them and put them back. And if it's raining, that's really, really a pain. So a lot of times in the spring, I'm arranging mostly based on when we have a break in the weather.
So bringing the cooler closer to the production,
Yes.
harvesting and production,
and
makes
having
a
it
lot
under cover and being able to, easily. In my dream world, what I really want is to be able to wheel carts in and out, because I think everybody's kind of killed themselves with buckets. And so
stacked cart would go right in the door. And,
exactly.
Yeah,
so
perfect.
having it all be level and having things wheel in and out would be a lot easier.
Okay, we'll be back to visit when you get that up. Is that happening next year, do you think?
That's the hope.
Okay.
We tried to lock in a metal barn before the tariffs hit.
Yeah. So it's on order.
It's on order. Our deposit is down. Now we're doing things like working on getting electricity in, putting in the foundation. Concrete has gone through the roof. So, that's a whole adventure.
Well, a couple of things I want to comment on while we're looking at them. We looked at the peonies, and you see this tall fence, everyone. This is deer country, probably a common problem that many people have. This is quite a big fence. Is it 8 feet?
It is 8 feet. We have very, very hungry deer. And I found this out because other areas I've lived in, I've been able to use combinations of garlic spray and mint spray. And if you stay on top of it, that will work. That will not work with deer here. And I found that out by trying with roses and hydrangea, which, are like a chocolate bar for deer.
Oh my gosh, seriously.
And so I just had to bite the bullet and put in some serious deer fencing.
And it surrounds both your orchard and your peonies.
And some woodies that I'm working on establishing. And, they are so persistent here. I never see them during the day because we have a livestock guardian dog, but he comes in at night so we can keep good neighbor relations.
Yeah.
And as a result, the deer, as soon as darkness hits, the deer are here. And one day so far this season, one of my kids left the orchard gate open. And sure enough, I found the roses munched down.
Oh, honey.
The next morning.
Oh, my gosh.
It's a struggle. I mean, they really test everything.
Yeah. Now, you said you moved here kind of during the pandemic.
We did.
Okay. What were these high tunnels or greenhouses here?
No, they were not.
Okay. We'll follow you down there. Had this just been someone's residence? You said that you had. We'll see the barn.
It was a private residence, and the person before us had horses. I can't remember if they ever had cows or not, but they had mostly horses.
Okay.
And
grazing pasture.
Yes.
Okay.
And they hayed, which is really common in this part of the Willamette Valley. Yeah, so this is one dahlia patch that I've recently put in. This is its first year. And as you can tell, I just got the T-posts in, but I haven't done my corralling with twine yet.
You'll get to it.
It's on my list with about 50 other things.
But it's so sunny and open here, and I didn't realize, driving here through some evergreen roads and whatnot, that you're up pretty high, and you have good exposure.
It's really nice. I particularly love this spot for dahlias, because in the afternoon the sun travels that way, so we actually get shade for the last few hours of the day, which here in Oregon is the hottest.
They would bake.
Yes. Yeah. And so they seem really happy here.
Oh, great. I love it. That's so, about how many plants do you have? It looks like you have them planted 3 or 4 wide in the row.
I do.
Okay.
And several hundred. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. We had some come up, and I'll have to take flags and mark the holes where others didn't.
Okay.
I work really hard to try to overwinter dahlias to the extent possible. I don't sell tubers. And so, what I was really looking for is what's the best drained soil that doesn't tend to have voles or mice, that I can overwinter them as much as possible.
When you say overwinter, do you mean in the ground?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, in the Pacific Northwest, gardeners often leave their tubers in the ground, but it seems to be a 50-50 split
I've had
on.
terrific luck.
Good.
So we have the other dahlias that we have are in raised beds, and I have overwintered those. They probably need to be divided this year, but I've overwintered them, and I've had almost 100. I've had better luck than I have when I dig them up and store them in terms of loss.
I agree, because then you have other variables on keeping them from rotting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And having to label them, I'm terrible at labeling in this way. I don't have to do that. I don't sell tubers. If I've got the variety wrong, it's not the end of the world. Someone's not going to buy the wrong thing from me.
Because they're just buying for color.
Exactly.
And what about your solar panel? This is another addition.
We don't have electricity down here, and we will wind up having to we're going to put a barn over in that corner field. We will wind up having to put electricity in here because I want to make sure with the cooler that no matter what the weather is, that it's secure.
No interruptions.
The solar panels will power that as much as possible. We may even add some more.
Wow.
But right now, everything in the high tunnels is all powered off the solar.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So the fans are pretty powerful. They'll make a fair bit of noise. And those fans are actually not on a high setting. They're on the medium setting.
Okay. But you need that for the ventilation and circulation.
I have found it makes such a big difference. So the first year that I had a high tunnel, I couldn't believe how much pest pressure I wound up having in it, especially some of the things I like to grow, like aphids on sweet peas, ranunculus. And since putting in the fans, I've had almost no pests.
Wow, that's great. And Jenny, are you sustainable?
I am.
Okay.
I am. So our goal is, our house well comes out of the land. We have a small stream pond. We have a lot of wildlife. And my goal is, if it's not essentially food grade, I don't want to put it on the plants or in the ground.
Okay, good. That's inspiring to hear that you're not having to spray in here.
I don't.
For fungicides.
Other than the only things I spray any plants with is I do a foliar spray with the KNF, the rice water that's fermented. I do some molasses and add that to it, but those are the only things.
So kind of mostly just natural amendments.
Yes.
Well, what mainly grows in here, it looks like the Lisianthus are starting to take off.
The Lisianthus have been very, very busy. So we've got some straw flower that I planted way too late, some asters, zinnias, peppers, because my mother's Korean and I have to grow all the peppers for the kimchi.
For you make them or she makes them?
Usually it's my job to basically create the raw ingredients. So I also grow some heirloom Korean radishes for our favorite type of kimchi. And so, and there are a few things that my family really loves. Tomatoes is another. So I am not allowed to discontinue growing all of our own tomatoes.
Right. And then your mom is the person who makes the kimchi.
She is.
Oh,
She's a terrific kimchi maker.
Oh my gosh, you could start your own product line.
Well, it's funny. We didn't really want to do it commercially, but she usually makes enough of it that we have like a little excess sale. And just on my personal Facebook page, I'll post it. And usually within 1 hour, it's always sold out.
People know.
Yes.
Wow.
They wait like every year.
What's your mom's name?
Cecilia.
Okay. Well, she's obviously got the secret recipe.
And it's she does like a vegan. It's all vegan. So it doesn't smell bad in a fridge like some. You don't get the fish sauce and the shrimp paste.
Right. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would try that then.
It's delicious. I love it.
Okay. So this is a 30 by 100 or?
Yeah. So it's a 30 by 96, and this high tunnel was actually salvaged from another flower farmer. You may know her, Claire Alderson.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do.
She basically had a flower farm, wasn't using this anymore, and so we salvaged all the metal from her property.
Wow.
And basically got new plastic.
That's amazing because it looks brand new.
Yeah, well, we basically put new plastic and I put new sides on because I really wanted sliding doors. After having experienced swinging doors, I'm a big fan of sliding doors.
I love that. So you've got the corrugated polycarbonate.
So this is basically, I can't even remember what this base is, and we just basically used hardware cloth. And the idea is, again, additional ventilation. Plus, we have dogs and we have puppies, a puppy right now.
Yeah.
And so this just makes it a little bit harder for someone to run in.
Yeah, they wouldn't know what not to do in here.
Exactly. But at night, we go ahead and close these doors
Sure.
because the deer are persistent enough.
Yeah.
They probably push their way through this.
Yeah, it's lightweight though. It looks like
Yeah,
it's just
we literally
PVC.
just hook it on a cable wire.
Very fun.
And that's how it slides.
Well, I love it. I love that you have quite a diversity in here. So some amaranth. There's a lone sunflower.
There's a lone sunflower. So when I first seeded that bed, we did direct sow, which I love. And the mice had their own ideas, and we wound up feeding probably who knows how many mice. They ate all the seeds. So that, and I think one or two, you'll be able to tell like what was direct seeded. Maybe one or two survivors have popped up.
And the rest you had to start in a seed house. And
yes. And I'm not the greatest seed starter, so sometimes things are late, but that is what happens.
I'd love to just walk through your Lisianthus.
Sure,
Yeah.
Sure. So I'm right here. This is a heater that we haven't put up yet because it's reliant on electricity.
Okay.
And the idea for that was I don't want it to be 60 or 70 in here in the winter because that would be an environmental.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
And not to mention the power.
But sometimes
costs.
you have like one cold spell where literally you just need to keep it at 30 or 32 and you just need a few degrees. That's the reason I got that heater.
Okay. So it will do it will help tremendously this winter. You'll get this mounted by this winter.
You know, only if we have a real cold spell because I frankly haven't needed it.
Okay.
The high tunnel itself is big enough that it keeps it just enough that things can survive pretty well even without internal frost cloth.
I really think this is just the region we're in, right?
Yeah.
Willamette Valley. Like you
Yes.
have this wonderful agricultural environment and it's just slightly warmer.
Yes.
Than freezing.
And every once in a while, you know, like we had a big ice storm. Oh, was it a year ago, 2 years ago?
Yes, I remember that.
And so a lot of people lost their high tunnels. And so I am a huge fan. These came from Oregon Valley greenhouses. And I'm a huge fan of their high tunnels because mine was the only one left standing in this area.
Wow. Well, the arches, or I don't know what the term is for these.
Gothic.
The Gothic arches look super sturdy. So
They you know, it's really good quality. And I think structurally it's really sound. And their price is really reasonable compared to the other places.
wow. Well, Lisianthus are beautiful.
Yeah, so this is a blue mist Lisianthus, and these are various roseanne varieties. And as you can tell, you're supposed to often, you know, nip the center, the lead bud. And I haven't done that.
You are cutting off of these and harvesting and selling them, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think this is a cherry sorbet. And I love the Roseanne series. It's probably not the smartest for farmers markets, but I just love the unusual colors of the greens and the browns.
Oh, yeah. And people kind of go nuts when they see them.
Yeah. So I've actually harvested most of this pink Lisianthus, but it's so floriferous. Even though most of it's harvested, you can still see quite a bit.
Wow. Oh, my goodness. So what would be your biggest crop? Is it peonies, Lisianthus, and dahlias?
Right now, dahlias for sure.
Okay. Okay.
Because dahlias are just such an easy thing to sell. And this is a lavender. And I haven't had much luck getting a second. I always try every year.
To get a second cut?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we get second flushes here that I've ever had. But these have bloomed earlier this year than they ever have. So I'm curious. I'm going to keep watering and fertilizing and see if this is the magic year of the second flush.
Maybe you will. But are you getting one cuttable stem off of each plant, or?
It depends.
Okay.
A lot of these pinks actually had several cuttable stems off each plant.
Because it's just the way that they're.
I think it also depends on variety.
Yeah, their variety,
So
exactly.
some of the varieties tend to have, they tend to be shorter and they don't have, like 5 blooms per stem, but you get multiple stems, like the ABC series.
Yeah. So maybe for weddings work and you have bud vases, you can use them, but Not.
I've had great luck using them for, just market bouquets and all kinds of things.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah,
Looks
I
like
love
you've
it.
got
Thank you.
way more planting area.
I know. These are all the ranunculus.
So they've come and gone.
They've come and gone.
Is that your first crop of the year?
Yeah, I would say that, and anemones usually come in the soonest for us.
And so this one you purchased.
This one I purchased. So this one came from an NCRS grant.
Okay, great.
It didn't cover the whole thing. It covered about half of it.
But you felt that 2 would give you the capacity to...
I wasn't necessarily planning even on any high tunnel, but the NCRS grant, I went ahead and did it, and it's been terrific. And so after that, when I saw someone had one for sale, I jumped on it.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Like, okay, now I know I've filled this first one. I know what I can do with it.
Right. So this one, the soil has been a little more clay than would have been ideal.
Okay.
And so I put a couple of raised beds in this one, and did some snaps and ranunculus in those this year.
Great.
We have a fair bit of delphinium and bupleurum that I put in the 3rd row. I made sure to plant the eucalyptus in the center in case it got really
The
hot.
tallest area.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And then we've got some mums and some scoop scabiosa and just some other status.
And sweet pea season's over.
The sweet pea season is over. We don't use any plastic netting.
Mm-hmm.
And so we use these hog panels, basically, these wire panels that we bend. And I say we, that's really generous. My contractor bends it for me. And it's about 12 inches tall.
So is the panel like a 4x8 panel?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you just turn it into a, I guess, 4 foot wide with 2 feet, 1 foot on either side or whatever. I'm doing the math wrong, but just to give it this curved element. It's
been great. Even things that traditionally get double netted, this has been strong enough to keep the stems upright. The hardest problem is that, like with the Lisianthus, you turn your back on something and you think it's really slow growing, and all of a sudden, before you put this on, it's shot up enough that it can be really difficult to get it on.
Okay, so it's just more of a timing thing.
Yes. But for snaps, for all kinds of things, it's really terrific.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I've seen these on other farms too. Some people have done double stacked.
Yeah, I haven't ever had a crop that needed more than just this.
Yeah.
When we first moved here, it was during the pandemic, and wood was, like gold. And so these landscaping pavers were actually cheaper than wood.
Wow.
And so originally, at the time we got this, I wasn't even planning to do commercial flower farming. So I got these mostly because this is what I often grow vegetables in. And it's a really handy height to be able to weed and things like that.
Right. It's taller than a typical raised bed.
Yeah. So it's about not quite 3 feet tall.
Right. And it's the interlocking, I think they call it Roman brick or something like that for retaining walls, right?
Yes. And so it doesn't move, which is great. I find that it works extremely well for spring things, less so for late summer, because you get the heat in the spring, which is a good thing. But in the summer, you can only really grow what can be super happy being extremely warm. So dahlias are okay in this. I actually still have my dinner plate dahlias in these, and they do really well. So for whatever reason, I think dinner plate dahlias seem to like raised beds.
Right. And just through trial and error, now you know, right?
Yes. So I'm constantly trying different things to see, do they work better in the field, raised bed, wetter soil, drier soil.
Well, you have them, and because they're so sturdy and beefy, they're probably not going to move anywhere, right?
They're not going to move anywhere. So at this time of year, we don't have a lot in the raised beds.
Okay.
Because I grow tulips in here too.
Oh, so like you said, spring crops.
Which is really easy because you just put the bulbs down, egg carton style, and then we get free compost from the city, which I don't think it's not certified organic, but they do everything organically.
Right.
And it's just composted food waste. And so literally I just egg carton style the tulips, and then you just shovel in compost on top, and that's worked so well.
Right, because look how deep these are.
Right.
You never, even if the soil settles and you have to add more, you're never going to.
And then I rotate, so I can tell like which one is ready for tulips because its level is pretty low.
That's funny. I love it.
Yeah.
What's in the back there? So you worked with a contractor to do some of the layout and building here? Yeah.
We did. And we did decomposed granite for this ground, which I really love because I can, toss things and not have to worry they'll decompose naturally.
Love it.
But it's still fairly natural. I mean, we still have to come through with a mower and mow it all because the
Right.
weeds will.
But it helps with, you get drainage too. It's not muddy.
Right.
Then, right.
These have to be thinned, but these are the radishes.
That you're growing for your mom?
Yeah, well, they came from our relatives in Korea.
The seeds.
Yes.
So they're special.
Yes. We, I have some relatives that are farmers in Korea. So we have, they acquired the seed for us.
I love that. That's such a great connection. Maybe you'll is there much of a cut flower industry in Korea that you know of?
That's a great, I don't know, actually.
Okay. That'll be
question.
On a trip, you'll figure that out.
Yes.
So dahlias are in raised beds, but they're lower here.
They are lower.
Oh, they look so healthy.
Yeah, so what I found is, for whatever reason, I think regular dahlias prefer the ground.
Okay.
They do better. But dinner plate dahlias love the raised beds.
Okay. And the heat.
So these dahlias right here were all cuttings from Farmer Bailey.
Wow.
And I haven't done anything to them, and they produce like crazy.
And they were all kind of generally in the dinner plate
Some of them,
category.
a lot of the ones in this bed, for example, some of them just came from flower farming friends who had extra tubers and things like that.
Sure.
There was less of a plan, I would say, than there was with the other dahlia field.
Oh, they're beautiful. I just love it. And I love the way that they are at the perfect height for harvesting. You don't have to bend over.
It's really nice.
These are shorter raised beds, but they're easy on the back.
It's really nice. And I have some of them are beginning to get ungainly enough and topple over. So I have some smaller T-posts that I'll carefully be putting in to corral these, which I probably should have done a month ago, but such is life. Shall we go up to the barn?
That sounds great. Hey everybody, welcome to the Slow Flowers podcast and Slow Flowers show. And I'm here in the Eugene, Oregon area at Dragon Song Farm with my wonderful guest, Jenny Jonake, founder of Dragon Song Farm. We just did a fun tour, which you will have seen. And we're just going to chat a little bit about your path to flowers and your flower life.
Sure.
First of all, give us a snapshot of Dragon Song Farm and how old is it? When did you found it?
Sure. So it's about 3 years old now. And I started off because I'd grown vegetables and fruit trees for years. And originally I was growing flowers mostly as a means of natural, to ward off insect pests.
Oh, just a kind of insectary.
Exactly.
Yeah, wow.
To attract beneficials, ward off squash beetles. So I would often interplant flowers with my vegetables. And I think one thing led to another. I had a friend that said, I'd really love it if you would have a CSA. I'll be your first customer. And I said, I don't think that many people would be interested.
So backing up, that was in 2022?
I think she started talking to me about it in 21.
Okay.
And finally I said, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I texted her and I said, I'll give it a shot. Now you're my first customer.
Give me my money.
Exactly.
And it was probably really affordably priced.
Actually, I think I've always tried to price, even from the very beginning out of the gate, along with similar to what the market bears.
Great.
Because my goal was always, hey, if this doesn't work out for me, I have some other, career options, career things I can fall back on. A lot of people who are flower farmers, that is their sole source of income. And if I'm going in basically saying, hey, I'm doing this as a hobby or whatever it is, and I'm undercutting them, that really is diminishing the market for them and for everybody. So I was pretty disciplined from the very beginning.
I admire that. That's wonderful. And so you knew enough people doing small scale floral agriculture that you could kind of see what our CSA pricing programs like and what's in them. And
yes. And I think I've heard, I think Lenny Larkin had a post recently where she said, I try to be the most expensive person at the market. I don't know if I'd necessarily put it that way, but if there's a test of can we test how much this will sell for? I usually try to do that and be the first person to do that because I really want to see, can we, how can we collectively as local flower farmers, make a living selling product.
Yeah. Oh, that's really music to my ears. I love that. And I think it's because of and we'll get into this, your personal background in other professional arenas. You're kind of very much focused on what is the value of my time and what am I doing. So from 2022 with your first CSA, at the time, what were you primarily growing? I know your peonies are just kind of maturing.
Yes.
So
I was growing tulips, probably a few dahlias, cosmos, zinnias, a lot of summer annuals, things like that. I did not have a cooler, so it was a little bit stressful.
And mostly field grown, probably.
All field grown.
Okay. Wow.
And I did have raised beds, so it was a combination of when I consider field, like literally in the ground and then in raised beds.
Right. And what we've just seen on the tour is it's impressive to think about all of this infrastructure that you've been able to bring on board in the last 3 seasons from 22. So the high tunnels, the fencing.
I'm a very impatient person, so it feels really slow to me. I know I'm always wanting to do things quickly, so I tend to plunge in. It's a little bit of a danger because sometimes I plunge in and you don't have the benefit of years of experience working with the crops and knowing. So I do a lot of research, I do a lot of reading, watching, but that doesn't always substitute for actual growing experience.
There's a saying in the writing world that are you a planner or a plunger? And, do you write an outline before you start writing or do you just start writing? I'm definitely on the plunger side. If I'm forced to have an outline, I'll finish the story or article and then reverse engineer the outline. But I think your instincts about the fact that you might start something, but you're doing the research while you're, building the high tunnel.
I read everything I can. So, I think, for example, my first fall, I got, Lisa Mason Ziegler's book, and I planted everything in the book that could conceivably overwinter because I wanted to know what's going to overwinter here. And I took really careful notes.
That was your research.
And I learned that it's not the cold so much, it's the rain.
Yeah.
So a lot of things can withstand a Maine winter, but they can't withstand a Pacific Northwest winter. Yeah. So I learned that the hard way. Yeah. Anytime a local flower farmer asks me, I share that because I don't want anyone else to have to learn the hard way.
So, we're talking about the cool winter, cool season crops. What does well and what is kind of a big fail on her list?
For example, things like Campanula, Dara, Dahlias, things like that, they are just, you don't have to use, frost cloth, anything. You can just get them in the ground just long enough for them to establish a decent root system. And no matter what they look like, they will do beautifully in the spring. And that's all you have to do. It's actually, they're very simple to grow.
They might look like they're dead in the winter, but then as soon as the temperatures rise, they perk back up. Yeah.
But snaps, for example, the rain was just too much for them. Yeah. I don't think it was the temperature. And so in a high tunnel, they'll do beautifully. Right. But out in the field, they will not do well. Other things have to be protected. Yeah. So for example, stock, the first year I carefully had the frost cloth and I, covered it, uncovered it. You do that every single day. You drive yourself crazy for months. You can't go anywhere for winter. So I tended to gravitate towards, okay, these are the crops that do not need babying in the winter. Yeah. And so I actually can, for example, take a vacation with my family during the off time.
And tough love too.
Yes, I'm a very much tough love gardener.
You don't have a ton of time based on your life. So from that first sort of foray, at the time you did the CSAs, had you thought about your market and where else you would be selling?
I hadn't, because at the time, that first year, I was really in the mentality of, I think, a lot of hobby farmers, which is, I just want to recoup the cost of my bulbs and my seeds. Right. And there was you saw it driving in, a little tiny market around the corner, and they asked me to be there. So I decided, okay, I'll sell at that market.
It's like a Grange almost.
Yes,
right?
It is a Grange. And so I learned several things. I did a couple of markets before the current market I sell at, which is the Lane County Farmers Market. And I learned a number of things. I learned that if you're picking a farmer's market, ideally, if you're selling flowers, you really want to look, the more urban your visitor, the better, because those aren't people who are typically going to be growing a lot of flowers at home. So they're more likely to purchase. You ideally want, obviously, a certain amount of foot traffic, but you also, if you're surrounded by arts and crafts people, that's probably not going to work very well for selling flowers. For selling flowers, ideally what you really want is other people
selling produce and things like that, that will attract your buyer. And that's the best possible kind of buyer.
Interesting. Because Eugene is known for its famous Saturday market.
Yes.
With my kids are in their 20s and 30s now, but they still talk about the tie-dye T-shirts that they got to buy back in the day. That is a craft, more of a craft and
yes. So they're
market.
Basically side by side. So the Lane County Farmers Market and the Saturday Market are side by side. And so what it does is it comprises a multi-block downtown outdoor market. But if, for example, I were to take my flower stand and position myself in the midst of the arts and crafts vendors, I probably wouldn't sell very well.
I see. So you're really over on the produce and the grown side.
Yes. And that's a lot of fun because being surrounded by farmers is fun. A lot of the things that you learn from vegetable farming apply to flower farming and vice versa. So it's a lot of fun being surrounded by people who are pushing the envelope of what they can do.
I love that. Okay, so we talked about those early, this early progression of this farm. When did you actually form it and name it Dragon Song? And tell us about the name.
Yes, so it was the pandemic. We'd had our schools closed down for a bit, and the kids really we'd just bought this property. We were growing strawberries, fava beans. I love fava beans as a cover crop. But then you have thousands of fava beans, and we had asparagus and all kinds of other things. And so the kids wanted to have a little roadside stand. And we were reading Tolkien at home at the time. I would read novels to them from a pretty early age.
Yeah.
And so we went with that. And our contractor created this roadside stand. It has little dragon heads carved in it. And it was actually perfect for fruits and vegetables. We wound up not using it ultimately for flowers. And because we didn't transition into flowers until the following year.
Well, I saw it when I drove in.
Well, you saw the first one. The second one's actually at our other driveway.
Oh, okay.
And it's got you'll see like the dragon heads carved on the end. It's literally the next driveway down.
Oh, okay. The first one, though, not only is there a stand, there are little libraries, vending libraries. So you're very neighborly. And
I'm passionate about books.
Yeah,
and
so great.
Yeah, if I had my way, I would. So we give out books at Halloween and Easter and things like that.
I love that. So Dragon Song is part of a Tolkien storyline that I don't remember, but
yes. So basically, it was that kind of ethos. We wanted to create something kind of magical for the kids, so they would, feel involved.
Oh, sure.
And,
I love that.
And so they loved that.
They can make up their own stories about it.
Yeah. And originally, I think they did little artwork pieces and things like that.
That's great. Okay, that makes sense. You eventually, at some point, did go all in.
Yes.
And is that kind of where you would say you're maybe like a teenager farm now, or do you still consider yourself an emerging younger farm?
I probably still consider ourselves emerging, but we're pretty, when I plunge in wholeheartedly.
You're all in. Yeah.
So I would say that first year, I kind of realized part of the way through the first year that, hey, I really love this. And it's not even so much about the end financial part, but I want to do this well. Yeah. If I'm passionate about something, I want to do the best job I can. And it doesn't even have to do with the monetary reward. It's just about really trying to master something and trying to get as much out of it as possible.
I agree completely. I'm thinking there are some folks listening who are saying, well, that would be wonderful, but how do you pay for it? And I feel like you've incubated this farm through your own sweat equity and your own investments. But it's creating a lifestyle for your family that you're, like you said, you're teaching your children about how to make change at the farmer's market and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And I guess I decided, because I treat it like a business, I do take the financial part very seriously. So, I've paid attention to what are the ways that I can reduce labor. So that's a big one. I really focus a lot on that. Are there ways that I can grow the crops, harvest the crops, arrange the bouquets in a way that will minimize labor? How do I do my setup? So for example, how am I not creating a lot of waste? How am I trying to use all the flowers? And I'm very particular about crop planning that way. If something doesn't have a long enough stem for me to easily make bouquets from, I might love it, but I'm very unlikely to grow it again.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. Like every stem has to pull its weight.
Right, because otherwise I'm spending, it's one thing if you're spending time in the garden for fun, but if I'm growing it as a crop, then it has to be something that customers like and respond to. It has to be something that sells well. Ideally, it can hold its own. That doesn't mean it has to be the only thing in a bouquet, but it really has to create a certain amount of customer excitement. And if it doesn't do that, then I think, well, is that space better used with less variety, but a crop that customers have really responded to, like ranunculus?
Right. So you're mainly selling retail.
Yes.
Okay. And
I sell some wholesale. So I do some events, and I have florists that will contact me, weddings, things like that.
And when those florists and event clients come, well, it's probably two different categories. If it's events, you're doing design for those events.
Correct.
Are you doing on-farm events?
I don't do much on-farm events, occasionally, but not very much, because the insurance is pretty difficult for that.
More for private events that you're running. And then the florists, are they able to come here and shop, or do you send out an availability?
They do come, and they haven't been a focus. So it's really been, usually they contact me. It's a lot of times it's someone who follows the Instagram account.
Yeah.
And so they'll see what I have and they'll say, hey, we want this. Or, there's a florist on the coast and they have very little access to things. So they'll let me know if they have an event coming up and what types of things they want.
And then it's worth the drive here.
I guess so. I hope so. I always feel really bad about that.
No, it would be worth the drive to fill up a van or a truck with your flowers when the person has no local wholesaler, and makes a lot of sense. And the amount of flowers you're growing, it blows my mind. And I just keep thinking, how can a farmer's market and CSA clients consume all that? But I guess I just don't really think about it.
We do a lot through the farmers market, the CSA. If I have excess, I do pop-ups. And so I have an email list and, a local group. And so we'll do pop-ups if we have a lot of extra.
Wow.
We do our little roadside stand. And then I would say it's pretty amazing where we wind up just having people who come in at just the right time and say, I need like 3 buckets of this.
That's wonderful. The CSA continues.
Yes.
And where do people pick up here, or?
So we have a bookstore in town that we've kind of narrowed it down. We used to have multiple locations, but at this point we just have the one location, and it's a used bookstore, a friend of mine. And it's in South Eugene. It's very convenient, and he clears whole tables, so it makes it really easy for people to pick up their bouquets.
I love that. Books and flowers.
I love books.
That's your motif.
Yes.
That's so wonderful. It's you share the same. The customer is the same, or there's at least a good overlap of people who care about reading and also value the beauty of what you've grown. I'm just looking at these dahlias here. They're huge. They're healthy. The stems are super long. Like, who wouldn't want to spend money on that? Even if it's just, every other week or when they come to the farmer's market. But you're talking directly to the customer.
Yeah.
You know your customers.
And also, if there are certain times of year where I know we're going to have a lot of extra, I will pick and choose events to time for those times. So in spring, I'll do a lot of events.
Because you've got the tulips and the ranunculus.
I've got extra. And a lot of times, also when you harvest, a lot of times you've got something that maybe doesn't have as long a vase life as something else. It's perfect for an event, but you would hesitate to sell it to a customer that would expect a week vase life out of it. I find those perfect for events.
So you're able to steer that inventory to a wedding or something.
Yes.
And you're making mixed designed bouquets for the farmers market and on the CSAs as well.
Yes.
Do you do a lot of design for other events, or?
I've done, I experimented with weddings, and that was really fun because I was incredibly nervous about it at first without any formal training.
Back to your plunging.
Yes, exactly. So I watched a million videos, how do I do an arch? How do I do a bridal bouquet? How do I do the ribbon on it, which you don't have to do for farmers market, things like that. And I will say I really loved it. The part that I think can be stressful is when you're a florist, you are, for sure that the sources that you've, bought from or ordered from are going to give you those. As a grower, you get a little more nervous, like this bride wants these colors. If something hits my crop, I could be in trouble if no other local farmer is growing that specific thing.
Yeah. It's like there's dual pressure because you want to grow something beautifully, but you need it for the design project. And yeah, so are you alluding to the fact that maybe you're backing off on weddings?
I have backed
Okay.
off of them. So I think if you're probably more experienced or bigger than I am, then you've got it so dialed in that it's probably not as stressful.
Yeah.
But for me, I was getting people who had very specific color palette requests that didn't necessarily overlap. So I'm growing more than I need of that particular palette. And if I can't market it some other way, then there was a waste involved in that. And that I
Yeah.
didn't like about weddings.
Yeah. And your palette mix, obviously with peonies, we know that's limited, but in some of these other crops, in dahlias or in the annuals, are you tending more toward the, I don't know, bridal palette? Or
Because we sell so much through market, I probably do the brighter colors more,
the oranges, the purples?
the bright pinks.
Yeah.
And I have my own preferences. And so I don't do, for example, yellow and red is not a combination you're probably going to see too much from me.
Yeah.
So I still do some pastels. I'd say I probably about 70% of what I grow is based on what my customers like. And I survey them at the end of each season.
Okay.
And I say, what did you like? What did you not like? And I try to find out, varieties, colors, what would you like to see more of? And that helps me make sure that exactly. And then 30% of it is just what I love.
What Jenny likes.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you surveying through your Instagram or through a mailing list?
Through my mailing list.
Okay. So you've built up that mailing list.
Yes.
Like you should. Very good. Yes. We got to hold our
because
customers.
If you get some weird, like you get your Facebook account suspended or your Instagram. Yes. I mean, I've seen that happen to people.
Yes.
And that's your business.
So
I think you always have to have some backup. So I do encourage people. And one thing I do is when I'm doing CSAs or pop-ups or special event, I always make sure to offer those to my mailing list first, at least 24 hours to 3 days before I offer it to the public. So I always want them to feel like, okay, you are my most important customers.
Right.
You've subscribed, you've got some commitment, you follow my journey, and you're going to get the first opportunity to anything that's offered.
You're not spamming them, but you're giving them an exclusive.
That my hope is not to spam people.
Yeah, I love it. Well, can we talk a little bit about your path to flowers? You talked about growing flowers and having a friend talk you into starting a CSA, but you have a full and active other career life.
Yes.
And would you be willing to talk a little bit how you juggle and balance all that? And
sure. So I wear a lot of different hats, and it's funny because a lot of people in my life will perhaps only know me from one area, so they may not even realize the other different things I do. So I've had my own law firm for, I've been practicing law. It'll be close to 30 years soon.
Wow.
And so
are you by yourself completely, or do you
I have my own firm.
Wow. No other lawyers?
No.
That's like, that's old fashioned, small town lawyering. I'm impressed.
I think my whole life almost I've been self-employed. I mean, literally since I was 16. And so I think it's just what I naturally gravitate towards. And I've thought at various times about joining a firm, but it's just so nice, to basically be able to call your own shots, call what clients you take, what projects you decide to do, what your work schedule is.
And has the lawyering taken a back seat to farming sometimes, or can you do them both?
Scheduling wise, probably yes.
Okay.
But in terms of total work, no, because law is very flexible. So you can really do it. I mean, most of the things I do, I can do at any time of day. So the farming is not that way. I mean, you really need to harvest in the mornings and the evenings in the summer and things like that.
It tends to it seems like for someone who's a parent and who has all kinds of other demands, the clients don't know when you're working. As long as the law clients are getting the results, they don't need to know you're working from 9 to midnight.
Mine actually know, and it's okay. So a lot of my clients are actually based overseas, and so
the time difference
actually works really well.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and they know that I work from home. They know that I have this,
farm?
that I have a very independent lifestyle, and my trade-off is that my rate reflects the flexibility. Now, if it might not seem like it, but I practice in a pretty specialized niche area. So a lot of the attorneys are hired from major cities that charge twice as much as I do.
Right. Right.
And so for me, you know, I can make a comfortable living doing what I enjoy at a relaxed schedule. And it really can be very relaxed compared to farming because you have, I feel like a lot more elements within your control than you do with farming.
That is brilliant. I am married to a lawyer, and so I totally understand what you're saying. There's a lot in many law firms and many law careers that feels out of control, but you've set it up so you're not having your schedule imposed by external forces. So I admire that greatly.
But it's kind of like flower farming, you know, with law, you figure out what things you like to do and what you don't. And then as much as possible, try to steer your practice towards that. So I don't like appellate law. I will only do that if I feel like I have to do it for a client. And so I try to steer things towards these are the things I enjoy doing. And the same with flowers. Like there's certain flowers that I learned I didn't like to grow and certain ones that I do. And so I think the more you can steer it towards that, you'll be more efficient. And also it's just something you'll enjoy longer.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And we had at the Slow Flower Summit last summer in Banff, Melanie Harrington from Dahlia May Flower Farm was speaking, and she made a comment about just advising people to stop doing what they hate and just do what they love. You'd think it was like this big insight, which it was very common sense, but people took that as such an affirmation that we can say no to things.
And I think life has a funny way of, with time and patience, sending you the people. It's sort of like, I remember a novelist friend of mine talking about why her reviews were so good. And it's because she wasn't trying to be all things to all people. She really had her marketing focus on the niche genre that she did. And as a result, the people who bought her books and left reviews knew what they were getting and they loved it, rather than, trying to be basically romance and thriller and everything at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of the same way. I think eventually everybody has a different style. And I love going to a market and seeing everyone's working with the same raw materials.
Yes.
But they all have different creations, and that makes it really fun.
Yeah. What would you say your style is when someone was going to describe that?
I probably have kind of a more romantic style. So I probably less like contrasting. There's some people who do amazing things. I love that. Probably more of a vintage, more old-fashioned style.
Yes, it goes with the mom who reads Tolkien to her kids.
Probably.
I love it.
And we have someone that's got kind of a wild style and things like that. And it did remind me. So you asked about like if we have excess flowers beyond what we can sell. I have some friends who basically work at the hospital, and so they will gather them up and make bouquets for patients.
That's wonderful. That's your own kind of paying it forward gift.
But I think there's almost always something you can. I've actually given flowers sometimes to other beginning flower farmers who haven't grown a particular thing, and then they can experiment with, hey, do I like growing with this type of material or not?
Yeah.
Or someone who works at a different market who's a friend of mine that needs, if they're allowed to. I mean, different markets have different rules about that.
Sure, but if they want to try to weave in Lisianthus and see what
exactly before they decide to buy the super expensive plugs.
Right. This has been so much fun, Jenny. Thank you so much.
Oh, sure.
Anything I didn't ask you that you want to share and leave us with when we wrap up?
Well, just that I love the idea of slow flowers in general, because I remember loving the slow food movement and always wondering, why don't we think of flowers in the same way, where local is so much richer and can give us, you think about like the land and the soil with wine, and you think about it with food. And I think we can look at flowers in the same way. And so to be able to support local flowers and really see all those imported flowers be able to be replaced with the beauty that we can grow here seasonally and locally, that's really exciting to me. And I think the fact that we have so much that we can expand into that way makes it so much easier to collaborate with other flower farmers, because there is enough for everybody to be successful. And really, to me, what we're looking at is, how do we expand this pie for everybody? How do we get customers more excited in general about, hey, it's dahlia season, it's this, as opposed to it's red roses all year round.
I love it. That's really a wonderful sentiment to end on. And I couldn't agree more. And I'm so glad you're part of the Soul Flowers movement.
Thank
And
you.
thanks for the tour and this really inspiring conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm glad it worked out. Thanks.
Same.